All right, I think it's working. Hopefully, everybody can hear us. Hello,
Hello, hello,
world.
hello.
You know what I just realized on this webcam? I need to trim my mustache. It's quite mustachioed.
You know what
Or
Yeah.
or you actually keep it and then you just like spin it and like have it go straight out like that.
All
I
right, I think it's
kind of want
working.
to see you with the
Hopefully,
big
everybody can hear us.
handlebar.
Hello. I would
Ooh,
say
I like that.
I could grow it out enough to do like this, but then I feel like I'm just infringing on like Corey Stowicki's territory because he's got a much more glorious mustache than I
I
do.
mean, Moo Crew could be the mustache Moo Crew, but I'm not growing a mustache.
Can you actually grow facial hair, Brandon?
Yeah,
Yeah.
He can
I
grow
just
a
shave all the
facial
time.
hair.
I think I have more than one facial hair on my face.
All right, well, internet,
Well,
we are your entertainment for Thursday night. It is the hardest working goatee in 40K, Lyle Dixon, joined below me by the least goateed man in 40K, Brandon Valley. To my right, a man who could probably get a goatee if he wanted to, Brian Horton.
that's true.
And then in the bottom right, we have a man who's in a house that's too dark to tell if he could grow facial hair or not, Brad Chester.
Look, I'm trying to put out on stream, and that's never a good thing. So
I think Brad lives in a pineapple under the sea. That's the only logical explanation as to why you constantly
I don't know,
lose
man. I
internet.
learned in high school that you could plug things into pineapples and it would create electricity, and so that would mean a pineapple house has more electricity than a Brad's house.
true story.
Can we talk about the fact that it's what 80 degrees by you? It's sunny outside and you have no electricity.
You keep saying these things like it's a bad thing, and it hurts my feelings.
Yeah, it's not the same as if the power went out where you live, Brandon. We could all still like exist at a reasonable temperature here. You know, everything doesn't just melt as soon as the AC goes off.
It's actually a balmy 79 degrees outside right now. It's actually
Wow.
It's also 7 o'clock at night, so you could paint that the other direction. That it's still
it's
79
been
degrees.
it's been like that all day. All right.
Are we not going to talk about the fact that Heidi just gave us the Fu Moo Crew?
The could we I don't know Moo Man crew? I don't know. We could workshop this.
All right. So what's the topic today, guys? So World Team Championships is going on. Baldur's Gate 3's been released, and I've not played it at all.
What are you, a communist?
Clearly, he just hates fun. Yeah.
Yes, I hate
Hey,
fun.
Brad, some of us have to paint the
Like,
miniatures.
hey, it's just another day of kicking puppies.
No, I use cats to sweep. I don't kick my dogs.
I feel like cats. No, I'm not backing them at all. Cats are Satan in the.
Well, I did want to, on topic for a moment, talk about WTC as that had started today. I guess they do 1 round today, 3 rounds tomorrow, and two
Two
on
rounds
Sunday?
tomorrow, 2 rounds Saturday, 2 rounds Sunday.
Yeah.
Or today's
So
only
it used to
Thursday.
be-
I forgot. Yeah. I was thinking like today was
They
Friday.
used to be 2, and they didn't like the long Friday, so they changed it to 1-2-2-2. So it's
Okay.
a day earlier, and they do the first 3 games. You get set into a pod, and the pods are ranked. So the top seed plays the bottom seed on day 1, which really gave us some holy shit games today. Because the big teams did not lose, my friends. They
Well,
did well.
here's what
So
I
we
point
had-
out, Brad. Here's what I want to point out. Obviously, the standings after a single round mean very little, if anything at all. Currently, America is in first place. Sweden, the
Wait,
team
why
you're
would you-
supposed to be coaching, is currently in second. And what I would like to posit is that means that Sweden would be in first place had you not died and been able to attend the event.
True story.
Actually, I think we need to take a step. We need to take a step back. We have the War Master and Eldar won. Surprise!
Wasn't
It
the
was
top
Eldar
4 all
versus
Eldar?
I actually don't know how the top 4 shook out because
It was a
they
lot
did-
of Eldar.
There was a lot of Eldar, but there was also Dark Angels. There was Chaos Space Marines. There
Yeah.
was
I think
Imperial
Quentin,
Knights- or
Quentin
Chaos
beat
Knights
Ennis
out there.
Wilson in the semis, and I know Quentin was Ennis was on Dark Angels, right? So it wasn't all Eldar. I don't remember what else was in the top 4. We have to go look. But like the top 8, top 12 is like 67% Eldar or something like that.
surprise.
I mean, if you watched the Meta Watch today that GW put out, they're like, well, even though we did fix towering, and I laughed, and we did fix Strands of Fate, I laughed again. They're like, maybe we need to do a little bit more to Eldar. And I'm like, yeah, like fundamentally change some of the rules.
Mechanics. Goddamn mechanics.
Well, I was very happy with the meta report because for some reason, GW has decided that the second worst army in 10th edition is Tau. So that means they're going to make Tau better. And I don't think by any stretch of the imagination that Tau is the second worst army. So I'll take any free buffs they're willing to hand out.
I was really confused by that. I don't see.
There's
Tau being
no way
bad.
that Tau is worse than Death Guard. I don't care what you say. Tau's not worse than Death Guard. Tau's not worse than Sisters. Tau is not worse than Admech. Like, there's
Death
just
Guard
no chance.
surprisingly have done well at a couple larger events, and I
From
think
one
that's
person.
skewed things. And the larger events that it's done well at is because they played the missions correctly in the terrain. And I think Death Guard, just everyone saw how badly they've performed, and people went, "Are just going to shelf those and bring something else out." So you're not getting as many.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is, I would say about 50% of Tau tournament players are just bandwagon riders, and they just own the army for whenever they're invariably busted in each edition, and when they get insane, they bring them back out. So there's a lot of Tau players that are just waiting for the Tau to get fixed, so you're not seeing the best Tau minds necessarily tapping into them right now. Probably part of, because if I think of all the people who did well with Tau last year were still playing, then they would be fine, or they would be putting up reasonable results.
Tau just went 5-0 at an event in Poland, literally
Yeah.
last week.
But that's WTC scoring, and Americans can't process that. So
It doesn't matter. They still went 5-0
I agree.
in an
yeah.
event.
I'm
And
just
it's
saying that
very
Americans
similar
are going to
to the
look
list
at
that
that
you
and
and I
not
did
be
on.
able to understand the context of it.
It's not even WTC scoring. It's modified.
What are the bottom two armies?
They said the
Votan
worst
and
army was
Tau.
Votan, and then they had Tau at a 38% win percentage.
Okay, how about that? Actually, pause that. Besides Votan, who are the bottom two armies?
Do you want me here? I can.
I think
You guys
there's
talk,
an
and I'll see if I can
Admech-
pull it up to do
I'm
a
talking
screen
about
share
your
for a minute.
opinion.
Oh, just my
My
opinion.
opinion.
Literally, there's 3 different stat centers, right? People that get stats right now that are pretty wildly done, and all 3 of them have different win rates. Kara and I were talking about that earlier.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Votan is the worst. If we're not counting them, I would say the next 2 in my mind would be Death Guard and I don't know. Probably in my mind, I think Sisters, but maybe Admech's worse than them, and I've just been bad touched by Admech too many times to not think they're bad. I don't know. But I think Death Guard
So
is the
Si-
next worst after Votan.
I think Sisters, they're not A tier by any means, but they have a lot of trash. They have a lot of speed. They have a lot of throwaway units. Like, they play the mission very well. You just have to go into that game knowing that you're probably going to lose your entire army, but you're going to get 85 plus points.
Brian, what do you think?
I really think the bottom tier is Votan and Admech. I think Admech because their army rules don't do anything for them. Their the detachment ability just doesn't do anything for them. It kind of buffs their opponent. And I just think Votan just are so over point costed. Their rules are okay, but I just think they're so over point costed that there's not much you can do with them.
My issue with Sisters, where I'm putting them down there, is I still think the army just plays too short of a range. That was the issue I had with them in 9th edition. Like, they're still just like an 18-inch, 24-inch army.
Oh, it's 18 inches.
Well,
It's not
it
24.
used to be a 24.
Used to be 24.
Now they're 18.
Yeah.
So let's look. Grey Knights are at 40% according to GW. World Eaters are at 41%. Sisters of Battle are 41%. Blood Angels 41%. Dark Eldar 43. Space Marines 43, and Imperial Guard 43.
I always throw that Space Marine stat out because of the volume of Space Marines that get played.
They're also lumping all the chapters together.
Yeah, just not Dark Angels and Space Wolves. Those are all separate. Space Wolves have a 46% win rate, Brad.
Because mostly diehard Space Wolf players.
Well,
play them.
I keep getting, and I know it depends on who you pull your data from. I know specifically if I go back and look at the Meta Monday data, that when he's listing his army win percentages for the weekend, he is breaking it down by if all of those non-compliant chapters played their personal detachment or they played Gladius, and all of the armies have a dramatically higher win percentage if you just play that army in Gladius. Like I think the Blood Angels was like 15 to 18% higher in Gladius than it is in the Blood Angels detachment, and I imagine that has to be true for most of them. So at that point, I don't really know how much the win percentage matters because they're just all playing functionally the same detachment with different units in it.
And a lot of the win percentages right now are coming from a plethora of teams events. Over the month of July, you had ATC, you had a big teams event in Europe, you had another teams event in Australia. That skews things, especially with stuff like Deathwatch being shown at a 50-some% win rate. I think
they're going in, they're a counter army in teams.
Yeah, I don't know.
That throws those off a little bit.
I agree with you, but I don't know who all is counting what data. Like I know JC on Meta Monday does not count team events. He only looks at singles events for his data. I don't know if the other armies, like I don't know if StatCheck's doing that or whatnot. None of us have any clue how GW is getting their data.
I think GW does all sorts of stuff, including combat patrol.
I think GW gets their information from a dude they meet in an alley, and he hands them an envelope. Like this is the deal, dog. Trust me.
I think they factor in combat patrol. To be more honest with you,
I mean, that wouldn't surprise me.
But doesn't combat patrol have like different detachments?
Yes.
Okay.
It doesn't have detachments. It has different rules.
I was saying it has different
It's
rules.
all
I
together.
I was going on yes because the rules are different.
All right.
The
So-
one thing I could say is this week on Tuesday night, I convinced my store to let Zuber and I play a narrative game of 40K. And we played a lovely narrative game where we had Tyranids versus Astra Militarum, or as I like to call it, Guard. And we had a phenomenal game, and he brought a Marauder bomber in the game. And he was so happy to finally just put it on the table that he got super hyped, rolled the dice with vigor, and blew up a Swarm Lord in one turn of shooting with it. It was hilariously funny and a great time. Probably one of the most fun games of 40K I've had in a while, and it was just playing a narrative mission.
Narrative for the win, baby.
Yep.
I
So-
tried to get Brad to do the narrative event at Nova this year, and he was going to do it with me. And then Nova made some weird ruling about how you can't be you can't get a narrative ticket for the weekend if you're in any of the other events, which annoyed me.
So dumb.
Yeah. Last year you could get a 3-day narrative ticket and do singles events on Thursday. And this year they're like, no, if you are going to miss any of the given days, you can't get a weekend-long narrative ticket. You can only do like a play-per-game ticket. And I was then at that point, Brad was like, nah, I'm not skipping teams to play narratives.
True story.
Yeah. Can't blame you there.
So we know what the issue is with Eldar. We know what the issue is with Gene Stealer cults. We know what the issue is with towering. We know what the
They're
issue
not
is with
fixing it, though.
custodes.
They're going to try to
I know.
point it out, man.
I know they're going to try to point it out, but let's not focus on that. How do we improve mechanically or point wise the bottom 11 armies that are below 45% win rate? I don't think they're going to touch Space Marines at all because they're getting a new codex. So those will wait till the new codex comes
Right.
out.
Same thing with
So-
Tyranids.
Tyranids are actually doing pretty good. They're at
Tyranids are-
51%.
I'm
I
saying,
imagine
like,
they're about
there's
to do
no
a lot
reason
better.
To change either one of those, you have a codex.
So we could just rule out Space Wolves, Dark Angels, Blood Angels, Black Templars, Death Watch. They're not changing any of those. But they're just not. They're just going to wait till the new codex comes out. And actually, I think all those armies will get hit because I feel like Space Marines is going to get put in the dumpster. I'll call it.
You think that Space Marines are somehow going to be the first book in the history of books where the first codex is not better than everything else?
Well, they're
Yes.
not first codex.
100%.
Eighth edition. We literally led off with 8th edition. Space Marines were good, and the Necrons took a year to get good.
I thought they just skipped the Necron Codex in 8th edition.
I mean, it
I don't
literally
remember
was
one.
Terrible.
It was ninth edition.
Ninth edition. it was
9th edition.
good.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
I
they were
just-
terrible until they started doing balance updates. Yeah.
I just don't see a world where when you get rid of 16, 20 units that are very effective, they're points efficient, they've been the mainstay staples of Space Marines, and you're replacing them with bloated, overcosted Primaris versions that don't have any of the same special rules. I just don't see a world unless they completely rewrite every single data card where Space Marines get better.
But you're
I
not
think as
counting
soon
that
as
they're going to be coming out with 10 new model kits.
Yeah,
for
you're
Space
not
Marines.
accounting for the
Yeah.
stuff that
So
we
it's
don't
not
know
even
what it
scouts.
does.
They're
Yeah.
going to have so
Scouts,
many.
Assault Marines, Assault character. There are so many damn characters in the Space Marine book, and you only have points for 2 to 3 of them. No one
Right.
cares about.
But they just made like 10 new releases for Tyranids, and they made it very clear that both armies are getting the same number of releases. It was just whoever won that battle for Ogum or whatever was going to get their releases spoiled first. So we know
I'm
that
just-
there's Space Marine spoilers coming.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Vanguard veterans, Assault Marines, but in Primaris armor, Assault Terminators, Scouts, and some characters. That's 10 units right there.
Right, but
And none
if
of
that's
those are gonna
true,
change the game.
if that's true, that's fine. They have a pretty good track record of showing that when something new comes out, they like to push at least some of it to make it a must-buy. So,
Yeah, like Desolation Marines.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're so dumb. The only reason why Space Marines have that high of a win rate are because of Desolation Marines.
No, I think that's an
Yes, because
oversimplification.
most of the rest of their data slates are not well put together.
Look, if we go through and look at all the Space Marine lists that have done well for the last month, there are a lot of people are only playing 340 points of Desolation Marines. There's still another 1650 that people have to put in their list. Like, it's not just one unit that's making people win 50% of their games.
100%.
Most
No.
of the rest of that is vehicles, with
Sure.
T12, and they're relying on that to carry them through.
It is scouts. I think the scout
Grav
sniper
decks for the win,
specifically
baby.
is going to be a big pain when they lose those. But people are relying on scouts, infiltrators, and lancers right now. And yes, I agree that I would like to see more variety. But I think it's a massive overreaction to say that the army with the most data sheets in the game is all of a sudden going to be unplayable when they get the first codex of a new edition.
I'm not saying unplayable.
fool.
They're just not going up in win rates. Tyranids are going to dominate.
You did say that they were going to go in the dumpster.
They're the dumpster right now. They're going to stay there.
What do we have them at right now? I can't remember. I gotta look.
43%.
43, yeah. To be fair, I do think that there's way more. Looking at the Meta Monday, I can put it up on a screen if you guys want me to. But looking at the Meta Watch article from today, there's way more below 45% than historically there has been since they started doing Meta Watches. Like the armies in the red below the 45% win window that they want. On some level, we have to assume that some of these win rates are low specifically because of how oppressive some of the top is. Not because their book is bad or unplayable or in the dumpster. It's because the things they're playing into are so overpowered that there's not a lot of opportunity to have a chance.
I mean, Gene Stealer Cult right now, in my opinion, is the top because most people don't know how to play against it. And it's such a high skill army that when people know how to play it, it is abusive. And if you don't know how to play against it, you don't know how to screen out against it, you don't know how to remove the blips, you are going to have a bad game. And it's going to be a bad time for you, and they're going to leave you with bad feels. I think that tears down a lot of armies' win rates. And I think Eldar, especially with mortal wound output, if you don't have a way to deal with it, you just get picked up by it. And that's driving a lot of those. And I agree with Lyle on that. It's driving a lot of the Marine stuff down, and a lot of that stuff that's in like the higher 40% win rates down even further.
Yeah, there's 3 armies at 43%, and I think it's pretty reasonable to say that they would be at 45, 46 if Gene Stealer Cult and Eldar weren't doing what they're doing right now. Like, I think 2 percentage points is a reasonable buffer that we could say they could be doing better.
True story. Well, you got to look at the thing that right now their win percentage does not include the fact that they now have to play within 3 inches, completely 3 inches, wholly within 3 inches.
Yeah.
Sorry.
This does not
within
reflect the
their,
GSC nerfs.
ambush token
Yeah.
now, which is a huge deal.
One very smart GSC player figured out how to 3D print an entire movement tray base for how to put neophytes around that blip within 3 inches.
I don't think that it's not doable, but I'm saying that it changes how the army plays quite a bit. You're not just stringing 20 guys back to an ambush token. and getting right back in the game.
Agreed.
I will
So-
say, if we go back to the Marine thing, I think the GSC is a great example because I think if you go back and look at the Marine list from the last couple of weeks, you're going to see one of two lists for most of them. You're either seeing the vehicles, like Brian mentioned, or you're seeing people who are just building straight up anti-GSC Marine lists, where they have multiple units of infiltrators, 3 units of inceptors to take the blips away, multiple units of scouts, and like I've seen a lot of people with 2 Phobos librarians to put on their infiltrators. Just to make sure that they can't interact with their ability to stop the screen or stop the deep strikes and the blips and all that stuff, which is great. You can build a GS, as we've said before on this channel, you can build a Marine list to beat anybody you want. But the minute you skew that hard in the GSC, there's no way you're beating Eldar. Like, you don't have the tools to beat Eldar tank spam.
True,
if
but
you're bringing 15
now,
infiltrators.
the thing is, does that mean the team tournament format is the purest form of 40K?
Oh, I don't think you're gonna get many arguments from people here on that.
I mean, I think it's the most fun form of 40K. Like, I'm watching WTC and how much fun and enjoyment they're having in the team environment. It looks like a blast.
I wish there was a WTC size event, 8-man teams in the U.S.
well,
we could
whenever
get
Brad
that.
dies, we'll make
Which
that
is
happen.
weird because, yeah, exactly. The Manchester Memorial Team Tournament.
Yeah.
Fuckers.
We'll just do it while you're alive to make it really.
I tried to
awkward
do
for
that
everybody.
last year. I tried to name the DOG team event the Brad Chester Team Tournament Invitational Memorial, and I was shot down.
Well, it's a new year.
I do like
Do
the
you-
fact
do
that you
you
guys
new
were going to
live?
post it up and say nothing.
Oh yeah. We weren't going to tell
All
Brad
the
until it
things.
went live with tickets.
I mean,
And then also
all
direct
for this.
everything to Snig, so he had to field all questions about my death.
So I was watching War Games Live, the coverage of the War Masters and today, and somebody asked a very interesting question. What if the United States ran an event, 8-person teams or 5-person teams, it doesn't matter, but it was locked by state?
That's tough.
Say it one more time.
So you know how WTC is locked by country? What if the United States ran an event that was just locked by state? So like, Lyle's the captain of Team Michigan. Brad is the captain of Team Ohio. Brian is the captain of Team New York. Who has the
So-
best team?
I have a
So
lot of
just
people lying about what's
Art of
state they
War
live in.
wins again because they all live in Florida. I don't know.
I disagree. I think there's a lot of strong teams.
I actually think Michigan would be really hard pressed to not compete on that one because there's just a lot of good players there. I think New York would win the hobby side of things, hands down. It wouldn't even be a question. From there,
Texas
it's
and California have so many players, man.
Yeah, I mean California and Texas would be strong. Florida would be strong. The Northeast would be strong, but I mean that's where we get into these weird issues. I don't really know where all these people are from. I know what region they're from. I don't know what state anybody's from. So
New York would be tough. There's a lot of really good players in New York.
Here's a question of it: why are we not able to in the United States have 8-man team tournaments when tons of smaller areas, countries do that all the time? There's tons of European 8-man events.
So
Australia runs a shit ton of team events, 5 and 8-man. So like, What's going on?
well, I think the short answer is
cost of-
most people in
cost of
40K
venues.
don't have that many friends. So
Cost of venues. The cost of a venue here is so much more expensive than the cost of venues in other areas. It costs so much more to run an event in the U.S. than it should, because I'll use Salt City GT as an example. For my 3 rooms that we had, which were 2 small rooms downstairs, our big main room, and 3 hotel rooms for staff, was 10 grand. Right? 10 grand covered the plaques. That was the only thing included in that was the plaques, the rooms, and the facility. That's not counting all the terrain we put down and everything else. It's an undertaking to run big events, and to run one like WTC, to have the WTC style terrain and everything else. It's an undertaking, and I don't know of any one individual TO that wants to put that much on the line who doesn't already have 5 or 6 things they're running.
See, Carl Malone says he has a venue we can use for free in Illinois. I don't know
Ooh.
if it's the actual Carl Malone, but like Death or Glory as an organization owns 200 some odd tables. Like they have the capacity. Sure, it's not WTC quality, but why not? It's not that many tables ultimately.
It's so when do you put that, right? That's where I start looking at things as what time of year do you want to go up against another big event? So January, you're not hitting January, right? Because you're up against LVO. February, people are recuperating from LVO financially.
Mhm.
So that's a tough month to put in the US. March, you have Adepticon, right? April, not much going on in April. It's probably your best month in the US to do it. May, you're not going up against Death or Glory. June, you have an ACO. July, you have ATC for your big event. August, September is Nova. Right? And then you start getting into the tough months to run events around the country.
I think late September would be a viable month. I think there's opportunity as long as you advertise enough and there's enough community interest. If the United States wins first, second, or third place at the WTC with coverage from War Games Live, you can't tell me that across the country there won't be more of a desire for team events.
I'm sure.
There
Like,
is-
I agree that there's a desire. I agree, it's kind of a Field of Dreams thing. If we have it, people will come to it. I agree on that. The issue is how many people do you have to get to break even, make it profitable? And
You don't need to
then,
make that's the one thing that a TO who does this is going to do it out of labor of love.
yeah,
It's not going to be for profit. He just doesn't want to lose money at the end of the day, have enough money left over to put down a deposit for the next year to do it.
right. So you would know the best out of all of us, Brian. How many people, based on your experience, how many people do you think you need to break even in a general size, regular size venue?
So in
I
a
say,
regular
it wildly
size
depends on
venue,
the venue.
Yeah.
yeah, you're looking at, so if you do 10 teams with 80 people, right, or 10 teams of 8 people,
Mm-hmm.
so that's 80 people. You can get away with a smaller venue and make it even.
How many
without too much
teams do
difficulty.
we need to make the tournament make sense as far as pairings as the event goes on? Like-
You would need 16 teams at a minimum.
Okay, so then 16 times 80 is, or 16 times 8 is going to be 80 plus 48, so 128 people.
Yep.
Is that enough to pay for an event hall that's large enough for 64 tables?
If you charge appropriately, where it's basically, I'm going to guesstimate $125 a head.
I mean, right now ATC is charging $100 a head, and I think closer to the event they've raised the price to 125. Like this isn't unreasonable. I
It's
think
one of the things
I think
that-
the biggest thing is getting a commitment of 8 people to join on a team. That's
Yeah.
why I think
We've had
5-person
trouble getting
teams-
5 people to show up on a team. So,
Yep.
I think that's the bigger challenge is the commitment of 8 friends to say we're going to this event. Groups of 5, 100%.
I would love to see an 8-man team pull off, because I think if you pulled it off once
Pairings are so much
successfully,
cooler, man.
I think if you pulled it off once in the U.S. successfully, your second time you double your size. In all honesty, you would go from a small thing to the next year massive, because then they'd be like, oh, the guys from England want to come over and kind of get some practice before WTC. A few of the other teams would try and travel. You would probably get Canada to send a couple teams down. It's one of those things of, if you do it and you do it successfully, it goes off well, it gets reviewed well on the internet, it's going to do well and continue on.
I don't
If somehow, though, you do it and it doesn't go well, you're never doing it a second time.
I don't know how much of this would matter, but I was thinking about this the other day. I wonder if America is just like geographically not the best place to try this, because I feel like I know they have tons of 8-man team events all the time in Europe. I have to imagine that in Europe there are different national teams going to each of those events to practice as a national team.
Spain had how many people at that team's event,
True.
Brad? Right? And
Yeah, I don't
the
know how-
vast majority of them were Spanish.
Sure. But I know that there are an unrealized number of 8-man events in Europe that America is just not aware of because they're not using the things we normally pay attention to. And I have to imagine that they're all just kind of going to a lot of those events multiple times as national teams. I think it would be difficult if that's your target audience is getting these national teams to want to travel and come use your event as practice. My concern becomes like you can't ever have WTC in America for the same reason that this might not work, because having WTC in America only geographically makes sense for 2 out of the 36 teams or whatever it is, because everyone else literally has to fly across the ocean, whereas if you put it in Europe, only 2 teams have to fly across the ocean. And so I wonder if your goal is to get European teams to come over here, I wonder if that's a similarly prohibitive factor.
So here's the thing. If you want European teams to come over here, there are 2 to 3 cities you can run the events in. New York, Los Angeles, and probably Chicago. Those are the 3 spots you can run the event because you have international flights that come directly into those cities. New York probably being the best choice. If you ever looked at what it costs for a venue in New York,
You could do down south though, Brian. You could do Orlando.
You could maybe do Atlanta. Atlanta's
You could do
got
Atlanta.
a lot of stuff.
Atlanta.
You could do
Atlanta,
D-
right.
you could do
You could do
DC,
Atlanta. You could do Orlando.
DC.
Orlando, you could probably pull off, right? I
Atlanta
agree
has
on-
to be the cheapest venue option out of those locations, though.
So what about Paducah, Kentucky?
I mean, Orlando's got like a huge amount of international because of the all the tourists.
Have we
I mean,
thought
you
about
gotta make
doing it in Toledo? And just
I mean-
everyone can stay at Brad's house.
I mean, Toledo's
do
very
Detroit.
international, guys.
I mean, we could
Sometimes
get
we even
someone
have
to go to
electricity,
Toledo because there's tacos there that are pretty good. But I'm not sure if the international committee is flying to Toledo for stuff.
No, they would go to Detroit.
Yeah.
I know this is ultimately a pipe dream, and
hopefully-
someone needs to put their foot down, but it's totally doable.
I don't disagree that it's not doable. It's the fact of the time commitment to pull that off has to be by someone who is a tournament organizer that is what they do. There are 2 companies in the US that could pull it off. I don't see one of them putting the effort into doing it for one. And the other one can pull it off, but I'm not sure if they're ready for that step yet.
we're one
Yeah,
of
just
them. I
being
just don't
honest
know
with
which
that.
one you're talking about.
Do we need an '80s montage video? What do we got here?
We very much would need an 80s montage video for the one. The other one, I just don't see that company stepping into those shoes. I think they're very happy in their lane.
Brian, didn't you mention that there was a Canadian group who wanted to host a team tournament in the United States?
Absolutely is. And I've been talking with them, and I'm more than willing to help them get it off the ground.
Is it groups of 5 or 8?
They were talking about doing groups of 8.
See, right there.
So the hope is they can pull it off. They are committed. They have a backbone and they have a structure, which is what you need. You need a team that is committed to doing it. And they either need to be somehow monetarily involved in it or they need to be really committed volunteers.
I may be being too optimistic here, but I think the most realistic way this happens is GW just decides their team tournament next year is an 8-man. Like, that would just be
I
the
agree
simplest,
with
because
that.
they're going to commit to do it no matter what happens. Just do 8 people instead of 5.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think it'd be very
Now, with all
popular.
the-
It'd also be nice if, GW came into the Northeast. They're one of their largest player bases in the world and held an event.
Yeah, I don't know how they're picking their towns. I thought they were starting just by doing all this stuff near, because they're the American arm of GW is based in Memphis, right?
Correct.
Okay. So I assumed they were just starting with stuff they could drive to from Memphis, but then they started picking Washington, and I have no idea what's going on.
I think they threw darts at a map. And whatever the closest metropolitan area was, that's where they went.
I mean, it makes sense for them to pick major metropolitan cities to do stuff. Just because it's easy for transportation side of things. But the expense, like I was looking at going to Florida for their event that a couple of the guys from here are going to. And the cost of the hotel alone was just like, wow, that's just way too prohibitive to doing it. It was like almost $300 a night for a hotel, which is asinine. And there was nothing close by that was within reason.
Well, I want
let's
to
go-
interrupt for a moment if I can. We have a question for Brad from the chat, and I know he can't see it. But Star
I
Lord
can't say
15,
that. I'm
Brad.
looking at it right now.
Yeah,
I was
Star Lord
about to say
15
that.
would like you to explain why are 8-man tournaments better than 5-man team tournaments.
So I'm going to do that. And we had a post earlier where Montana was saying they were going to have a team tournament this year, their first. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay.
So 8-man significantly better because of the fact that, one, you can't just grab the tops because then you get into 8 armies. So you have to make real decisions on those last 3 armies. It's not like you're like for 5-man teams, you effectively take the top 4 armies and then you have one counter pick, which you're trying to be with. 8-man, you have to do more of that. 8-man also has way more room with pairings to do counter pairings, to trap people into armies, because you just have more decisions on the tree going all the way down. So it becomes, the game within the game becomes much more complex. And I love that a lot. And it also means that you get a lot of different matchups. So because if you have those last armies, it basically went to ATC and every team basically ran 4 armies. And then their 5th army was their choice. So in 8-mans, you get a different variety of armies, which makes the pairing process much more complex and enjoyable, to be honest. That's all I have to say about the war in Vietnam.
All right. Well, we've been talking for 40 minutes and we haven't talked about Baldur's Gate yet, Brad. And I feel like we need to fix that.
We also have to do our predictions for WTC.
Well-
Now, who cares about that? Fine, let's do some predictions. Fine, let's talk about 40K on our 40K show when I just want to talk about Baldur's Gate 3. Fine, Brandon.
I feel like 3 of us haven't played. I feel like you're the only one who's
No,
actually
Brad
played.
has played more than me.
I am definitely playing the shit out of Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
But you live in a
That
pineapple
game
under the
is
sea.
amazing.
How do you, but
Look,
you don't have internet?
as soon as I get electricity, I'm going to play that game again. Also, I just don't sleep, so I have plenty of time to play.
All right, so what are our predictions? So there's 2 games tomorrow, and they're still in their bracket. So the
But it's
current
not pod.
ranking
Say it
doesn't mean
right.
anything.
We're doing it soccer style. So
Yeah.
soccer does pods.
All right, 2 more games in their respective pods.
I only
So
saw
who-
who was in
so-
America's pod, and I definitely thought America was going to be 3-0 in their pod, but I didn't look at any other pods, so I don't know who else. Who got the pod of death, Brad?
Say again?
Who drew the pod of death? In soccer, there's always a pod of death. There's always one pod that has way more
You
good
guys
teams
are
in it than
mad at
everybody
me,
else.
but that's cool.
I don't know what Brad said.
Brad, who got the pot of death?
The pot of death, I don't know off the top of my head because I have all this up on my computer, right before I lost power.
All right. I'll see. You guys talk. I'll
Sweden's
see if I can
Sweden's
find
pod.
the WTC pods.
I am also looking to help out.
Sweden's pot, for instance, was Italy, Greece, and Israel, which was basically the leftovers from the Russian team. It was the people with dual citizenship. So they played them today and did really well. There's a couple pods that were very strong. There's always a couple pods that are significantly stronger than others because some teams also have a bad year, like a transition year where they're changing the guard and stuff like that, because they base it on previous year's performances.
All
So you
right.
get some teams that are, a lot better now than they used to be. So you get a couple pods that are much, much different.
All right. Let me read the pods out to you, Brad. All right. Pod 1, Poland, Denmark, Switzerland, Belgium. Pod 2.
Belgium's pretty good.
Okay. Pod 2, Germany, Spain, Scotland, Norway. I know Scotland is in this on Scotland or England. I'm not sure.
Scotland.
And this is on Scotland.
Scotland. That's a tough pod right there.
That is, but I don't even know. You don't even have to go any farther. That's a nasty pod.
Okay.
Just a nasty pod.
Let's see. Your team, your boys, Sweden are in there with Canada, Wales, and Ireland, Northern Ireland.
What's that?
I said Sweden
that
is
pod.
in there with Wales, Canada, and Northern Ireland.
No, no, that's last year's pods.
Am I looking at last year? Oh, this is. I'm
That's
sorry.
definitely not. That's definitely not this year.
You're absolutely right. I'm so sorry. I just Googled it and I didn't notice it came up 2022. Let's see if I can fix
You
it.
can see, look on
You can
Facebook,
see,
it'll pop up faster.
BCP has the pods also.
Oh, it does.
I think so. because it'll show you what the first three pairings are. I'm pretty sure. But also, that was a good tough pod. But unfortunately, it is last year's pod.
Yeah.
But that was a vicious pod last year, by the way.
All right. Hold on. I think I found it. Yep. I found this year's.
There should be 36 teams.
Yep. All right. Oh, they have tier ranks now, so they're saying who is the top rated person in each pod.
Yep.
I'm not gonna go over that.
Good. The top tiers play the bottom tiers today.
Yeah. So pod 1 this year is Russia, Sweden, Ireland, Romania.
There's no Russia in the pod.
Still not right.
This says
Not the right
2023.
pod.
Which event? Are you doing the right event?
It says 2023
Why is this
WC Team Event Pack.
Just so much no.
I'm on the WTC website and I clicked on the Team Event Pack.
I'm telling you right now, Sweden played Israel today. So
Did they
yeah.
just replace Russia with Israel, or
They're literally in a pod with Italy, Israel, Greece.
All right.
dude? I don't
Yeah,
know. This
and
pack
they're
says it was
just
updated
Russian team.
on July 14th, so I don't know why it's not right.
I'm trying to find it here.
I mean, again, BCP
All
doesn't
right.
have it.
I got you right here, guys. Okay. WTC pod number 1 is Croatia, Norway, Ireland, Canada.
Yep.
WTC pod number 2, United Nations 1, Luxembourg, Switzerland, Germany. Pod 3, Israel, Italy, Greece, Sweden. Pod 4, Cyprus, Northern Ireland, Denmark, USA. Pod 5 is Chechnya. I'm assuming that's what that's supposed to be. Latvia, Austria, Netherlands. 6, South Africa, Wales, Finland, and Poland. 7 is the other United Nations team. Iceland, Scotland, France.
That's a rough pod.
Number 8 is Bulgaria, Romania, Spain, England. And 9 is New Zealand, Portugal, Belgium, and Australia. These actually
Spain
seem
and
pretty
England's-
diverse. These seem like they're
pods seem
pulled out of
really
the hat.
good.
Like I don't think of any of these pods being a death pod, so to speak.
Pod 7's tough.
Yeah, we had.
Pod 7
I think that
with
it's a big
France,
deal for
Scotland.
the. Yeah. France is in transition a little bit.
Yeah, but the United Nations team, Scotland and France all together, that's a rough pod.
I'll give you that. I think the Spain-England pod's going to be dominated by Spain and England, but those two could literally go at it. I could see a draw there. England a strong team, though. If you
I
want to
haven't listened for the last 5 minutes. I'm just trying to figure out why the pods are wrong in the official WTC Event Pack.
It might just be an example.
It does say it's just an example. What do you know? All right.
Yeah, because Russia and Belarus are not playing this year. They're
Yeah,
banned.
because it says earlier in the packet, it was like, yeah, we banned all the Russian and Belarusian players. So,
Belarusian.
yeah.
All right, so we know what the pods are. I think all the pods are pretty reasonable. I don't think any of them like stand out as being overly strong. So what are our top 5?
I think right now England's got a rough team, man. That team is nasty.
Yep.
I have a hard time thinking that they're not the favorites. I mean, there's a lot of really good teams, but like
Who did
until
England lose to last year? Because everyone thought they were the favorites last year also.
Australia,
They lost to
Won.
Australia.
Yep.
Who did America lose to? England?
Australia
America
Australia.
also lost to Australia?
and
We didn't
Poland, I
lose.
think.
oh, we lost to Poland. Now we tied Australia. They literally we needed one more point to win, so we got a tie, and then we fell off a cliff against Poland. They're
Brad's
still
arch
looking for my
nemesis.
body.
Brad's arch nemesis. A good time in Poland.
I mean, so why don't we just look at the pods and pick a winner of each pod? Is that a good way to start?
Sure.
For sure. Go pod.
So-
We should have done that while we were figuring out who's in the pod. All right, go pod 1, and we'll all pick the winner.
All right.
Croatia,
pod-
Norway, Ireland, Canada.
Ireland.
Say one more time.
Croatia, Norway, Ireland, Canada.
Probably Ireland.
Canada.
Canada, 100%.
Canada's has had really strong, big strides to make their team a lot better. I'm very impressed with Team Canada this year. They've done a ton of practice, a ton of scrimmages. Those guys have done a great job, really getting their team to the next level.
I give a lot of credit in that to Jeremy Atkinson. He put in a lot of effort as a coach there.
Yeah, those guys literally have put in so much work. I have to give them props.
I mean, they also have a Dr. Glory member on their team, so we have to give them props.
All right, so the next pod,
Pod two.
UN 1, Luxembourg, Switzerland, Germany. I'm going with Germany.
Yes.
It's tough not to take Germany, man. Those guys are year in, year out amazing.
Okay. Pod 3, Israel, Italy, Greece, and Sweden.
Sweden.
My boys from Sweden crushing that shit downtown, baby.
100% in agreement on that one. All right, next pod, Cyprus, Northern Ireland, Denmark, U.S. I think it's hard to pick against
US.
the U.S. in that pod.
They should get out of that pod. That's a pod where they should definitely pull out.
All right. Pod 5, Chechnya, Latvia, Austria, Netherlands.
I think
On this
Austria.
one, I'm going with Austria just on history. Brad?
I'm back and forth. Austria's got a decent team, but the Netherlands, with Ruud and the boys, that's a strong team too, man. You know what I mean? Neither one of those teams, no one in them has been dominant, so it's hard to pick on that one.
Well, they just did win the. I think Thomas won the War Master.
Yeah.
So they just
the
won the
Austrian-
single player event.
The Austrians just won that. You know what? I'm going to go with my boy Double O's team. I'm going to go with the Austrians.
Okay. So then we have Pod 6, South Africa, Wales, Finland, Poland. For
Poland.
me, Poland.
They're always good. Those guys put in a lot of work.
They also have a towel list, and that was my pick to win the event because they had a towel list.
All right, so Pod 7, UNA, Iceland, Scotland, and France. I think this is a tough one to pick personally.
Who's my fourth?
France.
France. So UNA, Iceland, Scotland, and France. I'm going to go with Scotland because
Iceland,
I love Ennis.
It's a strong team, man. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to go there too.
Okay. Pod 8, Bulgaria, Romania, Spain, and England. That's the coin flip pod, in my opinion.
I would say England.
England and Spain, man. That's tough. I'm going to say that England, until they show me different, I still think that they're probably the favorites, top to bottom, strong team.
I'm going to go Spain with the upset, and it's going to be specifically the Blood Angels player that pulls it off by a point.
I'm going to go with England on that one. And then in our final pod, New Zealand, Portugal, Belgium, and Australia. And
Australia.
I'm
Australia.
100% on Australia with this one. Brad, would you go with?
Australia for sure.
All right, so
Still
then
a strong team, good list.
after we've picked the pods, let's go with our personal favorites for who's going to win in the whole thing.
Do we have like a bracket that the pods go into, or is it just random Swiss of the 8 winners?
It goes after you get out of your pod. It goes into standard Swiss.
Okay.
Yep.
So we can't predict what the matchups would be
So
or anything like that.
Tops play tops, bottoms play bottoms.
Yep. So this is where I'm going to go. Let's pick our choice for who's going to win the whole thing. And we will start with Lyle.
I'm going Poland, Spain finals. Cal versus Blood Angels to win the whole thing.
Someone voting with their heart right
Yep.
there.
Look, I don't know
That
there's a
Blood
reason
player
I
went
wasn't
5-0.
answering these questions. I don't know any of the 40K players further away than England, so I'm just not informed enough to make actual opinions. So I can only vote with my heart.
All right, so Brandon, who are you going with?
I think it's top three in no particular order. I think Germany, Poland, and England.
And I will then go, and we'll leave it to the expert for the last one. I'm actually going to be pulling the Canada, U.S., England as my top three. And I, for some reason in my head, think Canada's going to pull it off this year.
And why do you think that is, Brian? Just
I just
besides the
think they
fact
put
you're
in-
right next to Canada.
It could be partially because I have a lot of friends on the team, but part of it is the amount of work that I watched them put in this year, and the team they formed and the bylaws they set up and everything they wanted people to do to be part of the team, just told me how committed they were and how focused they were on doing well. And the player skill they've got there is phenomenal. I think they're primed to pull off a very big surprise upset. All right, Brad, what's your opinion on it?
Elongor, blah, blah, blah. Sweden number one, baby.
I mean, they do have a theme song for Eloise.
See?
Brad, is there a non-0% chance that you get on a plane tomorrow to go out there if they're undefeated?
Probably. I do have a big Delta credit because they didn't get on my plane, so I'm in. I'm all in on the Swedes. The guys did a lot of preparation. I like a lot of their lists. We did a lot of pairing stuff, and I'm confident that my blonde-haired peoples will do well.
Now, have they ever won first?
They've been second. They have not.
Okay.
They podiumed multiple times. They have not won the overall yet. I do not think. I might be lying, but I'm pretty sure it was only second.
So all four of us have agreed that Australia isn't going to podium. Does that make sense?
I only
'Cause they
picked
did
two,
really well.
so
only
Australia
chose
could be
one
my
team.
third. You never know.
Hmm?
I was
Go
saying
ahead,
I
Brad.
only picked two teams, so
I went with three because I'm indecisive, but I do really like Canada's chances this year. There's something about that team that the makeup of it, I don't know, it strikes me. Nothing against any of the other teams. I think the vast majority of them have put in a ton of work. They're gonna, do well, have a fun time. I would love to be there with all of them judging. Maybe some year coming up, but I just like what Canada put in.
here's a question I have, Brad. And I don't think anyone would. I think it's an actual 0% chance that one of the UN teams could ever win the event. I don't think that's super likely. What is the likelihood or possibility that you would give one of the UN teams for winning their pod? Maybe this year, maybe at some point in the future. Do you think that's ever
bracket?
one of the United Nation teams winning their pod? Do you think that's ever possible? I know in college basketball, people said 16 seed would never beat a 1 seed, and now it's happened 3 times. So
Yeah, winning their pod, yes, because the pods can be random basically, but I don't think they're ever going to win the whole thing.
They physically can't. It's in the bylaws that a UN team cannot win first place, even if they go undefeated.
Well, I'm saying, I don't think they're ever going to go undefeated.
yeah, I was just wondering. I thought it might be possible at some point for them to win their pod, but I know that's not easy.
I think they could win their pod. So the whole entire purpose of the UN team is to bring countries together and to have multiple people from multiple different countries together on a team and just putting goodwill forward and all. And I think you have to have a minimum of 5 different countries represented. And it's just kind of hard to coordinate that. I'm not saying that it's impossible to find, 5 players from 5 different countries who are all top tier and can make it work, but it's it's hard to plan, it's hard to coordinate, it's hard to, you know, like I'm just going off my experience I did last year. Like we had a really good team. Like our team did really well. I think we got 10th or 11th out of 28. We almost drew Australia, which I thought was pretty good. Like their best Eldar player I got a draw against using Blood Angels, and that's a terrible matchup. Come to find out. But I think it's possible. It's just you don't know who's going to be on your team. You don't know who. You don't have that camaraderie. You don't have that practice, if that makes sense. And
Your story preparation's key.
and I think the reason why I'm not rating the United States that high is we're in a new edition. It just came out late June, and I don't think they've worked together that much. You can tell me, Brad, if I'm wrong, but I just think overall, I don't think that team has worked that well frequently recently.
I do not know their preparation right now.
I mean, from what I know, their preparation pretty solid, but I know that a couple of their major players are not feeling this edition of 40K, which I think if you're not feeling it, that means you're not putting your whole heart into it, that may drive things down.
So there's a question in chat about what the UN team is. It's specifically, I think Brandon explained to me as there's countries that don't have enough people to make a team of 8, so they send multiple people from that country, and then they fill in the rest with people from other countries, kind of as like goodwill ambassadors.
It's a bit more complicated than that. So
Okay.
the ETC's doing, or the WTC's doing different than what the ETC did. So the WTC wants to have multiples of 4. So they had 32 registered teams. Doesn't make sense. They had 34 registered teams, and they wanted to get up to 36 in order to adopt that pod structure. So they implemented 2 UN teams. And I believe both of which are representing a country. Like there's 3 players from a specific European country, and then it's filled out the rest with other people from around the world. Any team could have a mercenary. I think you have up to 2 mercenaries from a different country. It's just
There's
frowned
so
upon.
many bylaws now, by the way.
Yeah, it's well.
It-
I'm looking at I'm looking at Scotland. They have an American on the team because somebody got sick and dropped out.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
That just happened this week.
Like unless they have big circumstances. After Nick got on when the English won. They changed a lot of the things. Effectively, if you're a known player and you're trying to get on a top team, the captains will just straight up veto it.
Yep.
So KR, yeah, Brett Urbanowski, the famous Imperial Guard player, he's on one of the UN teams. I was on a UN team last year, but yeah, they just want to have a diverse amount of countries, and the quantity of UN teams depends on how many other teams register. They want to have multiples of 4. So theoretically, you could have 0. Theoretically, you could have 1, 2, or 3.
Do you think they should allow?
Yeah, we've
Brad,
had
this is more a question for you.
In the past.
Go ahead, Brad.
I was just saying that there's usually one has been the UN typically.
Yeah.
Because it's
Do
the
you think
catch-all
we
for
should-
people that
Do you think they should allow multiple teams from countries if the countries are able to field them?
fuck me. Yes, so much yes.
So right
Because
now it's based on what FIFA soccer teams. So realistically,
Soccer rules. Why
there's nothing
it's
stopping
what
us.
FIFA has 5 teams.
Yeah, there's no reason why we couldn't just say we're Team Puerto Rico and take a team and send it there.
I mean, the thing that's stopping you would be the captain's committee, the captain's council. Like, if they would, if they thought that's what you were trying to do and they didn't want you to do it, they just wouldn't let you do it.
You haven't met Bernardo Chester Rodriguez.
Well, I think that's part of the reason that like ATC is so strong and so large, is that it has the diversity of, hey, guess what? We sent what 5 Death or pretty much 5 Death or Glory teams to ATC.
Mhm.
You know, I bet you WTC could get even bigger if they had 3 teams from each country available.
So I think some teams could do it. Like Germany could send multiple teams. France could send multiple teams. And then there's other countries who, like Greece, who can't. They physically cannot. And I think that's just an
it's funny.
unfair advantage. And that's why it's been
It's not
limited to
unfair.
1 per country.
The team winning, not just the country. It's unfair that we have the entire population of all the teams going, and we get one team.
Team Puerto Rico, the United
USA,
Republics of Texas.
USA.
No, I always thought that was an interesting quandary. I never really knew the insides of why not.
I think it's a
Because-
captain's vote. There's some teams who don't want it, and there are other teams who do want it.
Brad, how many teams would America have to have for me to get on one?
So, well,
God
anyways,
damn
moving on.
All right. With that, I think it's time to call it for this evening. Brad, we at some point need to talk some fucking Baldur's Gate, man. We need to do like a Baldur's Gate stream or something. We gotta like stream some game time or something, man.
You guys should do this while
I
playing the
literally-
game.
We will talk Baldur's Gate on Sunday live while playing the game.
I will only
Brad,
watch if
I
you
thought
guys
we're
are
going.
playing.
I thought I'm going to Snig's house on Sunday. What's happening?
Oh shit! Never mind. We're not going to do that at all on Sunday. I'm a liar. We're gaming on Sunday.
So, hey, on Sunday,
Sunday evening.
I will be on a boat that's called Cruise Hammer, and I plan on being completely ship-faced by the time we get to, I don't know.
There is no chance that if I was goddamn running this, that I wouldn't have already been playing. I'm on a boat, motherfucker. Don't you ever forget.
Yeah, Brian, make
So,
sure
Brian-
you get someone to take a picture of you doing the Leonardo DiCaprio on the front of the boat, okay?
Done.
All right.
I want to see pictures. I've never seen this event. I've never seen any coverage from it. I want some pictures.
I will do the best I can to take pictures. They may be a little blurry because I'm going to be a little blurry-eyed.
Even if it's a picture of your cocktail at the table.
Well,
That's the best kind of picture.
I mean, I'm going to have one in my hand from morning to night, so not a problem.
All right. Well, Brian will go all over his exploits winning Cruise Hammer and beating Richard Siegler in the finals when we come back on Monday.
And happy birthday, KR.
Hey, happy birthday, my friend.
And my
That's
birthday is
tonight.
tomorrow.
Well, happy birthday, Brian.
There you go.
Will you
Go win
play
Cruise
KR
Hammer as a gift.
tomorrow?
I
Say that
think
again,
we
Brad?
need to go on Cruise Hammer to give Brian some birthday spankings or something. You know, Brad, you got to sing for Brian. That's tradition.
Only winners get birthday
I will
songs. He's got to
slowly-
win Cruise Hammer first.
Hey, wait, I won Cruise Hammer last year. Does that count?
For last
Yes,
year's
it does
birthday.
count.
You're a year
Yeah.
older now.
I gotta bring up old shit.
It's because all I got is old shit, Brad.
All right. Well, with that, my friends, stay milky, and we will see you again.